cloudy. Canning salt, kosher salt, or pink Himalayan salt works well. Botulism, that's something that you always heard about this whole family back in the day, and he was killed by botulism, and it's still carried back to today, and all these things, botulism, botulism, botulism. But what they don't tell you is that if you think there could be an issue or you don't feel comfortable with your food, boil the food for 10 minutes. Boiling food for 10 minutes kills botulism spores. Botulism these days is rare. Where do you put all this? I personally have a rolling cart, like a baker's cart, where I put my canner and a case or two of jars. New lids are stacked on the next shelf along with rings in a Ziploc bag, Sure Gel, citric acid, anything basically. I like a cart, and then that way I can get it out of my way. It's not in my way when I'm pulling out pots and pans to cook with. It's not my way getting my cereal out. It's not my way getting my dates out of the, you know what I'm saying? You don't want it all cluttered and everything up, but you want it where you can find it. If you put it in the closet somewhere, you're not ever going to find it. So I suggest what I do, and it's worked really well, is just get you some kind of a rolling cart. And like I said, I got mine for $30 on Marketplace or something, but any kind of cart that has wheels where you can take it, I just roll it out of the way and it's there. When I get ready to use it, I roll it back in my kitchen. And the neat thing is it's extra counter space when you do that. So, of course, you can put it in a plastic tote. Whatever works for you. Your kitchen, your rules. That's what works for me. Creative canning. By the term creative canning, I mean you stick a roast in a jar and decide to add some potatoes one day, carrots and onions. Then you decide to add some cream of mushroom and soup. Then how would you can that? All right, you got this, that, and the other, and you just putting it in a jar. How will you can it? It's got meat in it. Meat's always canned the same. 75 minutes for pints, 90 minutes for quarts. If you're going to water bath it, it's 3 hours. Always. Even if it's a minute speck in there that's got meat. Just do it the same way because that's just the way you're supposed to do meat. Canning the thick products. We already talked about canning thick products. It's better not to. I've canned cream corn and it kind of expands or whatever. And sometimes if it's real thick, it will expand and pop the top or something like that. So basically, if you're going to can cream corn or some kind of thick something, just thin it down just a little bit, with some water. You're better off doing that. Or just go down down to the shoulders of the jar, go that far down and just fill it to there and you should be fine. Your aluminum canner is pitting inside or discolored. Oh no, people say you can't have a pitted canner because in pitted, what I mean, have you ever seen pitted metal? Like you've got metal and it's got some rust. Well, the aluminum's not going to rust, but it will pit. And people say, oh, you got a pitted canner. That's giving you some kind of weak place in it. It's going to blow up. I've got a pitted canner. One of these days, and it may happen tomorrow, but it hasn't blown up yet. And usually what you're going to find, these older canners are going to have pieces of metal. It's going to look like little chunks out of them. It's not going to hurt anything. The only time it's going to hurt if you see something and it's got a great big pit in it. But these little minute pits that they all have, it's going to be like something like that. I don't know why it does it. It just does. Don't worry about it. Salt? Okay. That's probably true. That makes sense. All right, if it's discolored, it doesn't matter because the canners will get discolored looking. All right, water bath canners. Any pot can be used for a water bath. They just need to be immersed fully upright. We've already talked about that. And basically, you've got to have some kind of a rack or a basket. The bigger ones, this comes out of a bigger canner that I have, this is the basket. You can buy these baskets. You can buy them even a basket on Amazon if you've got a stainless steel pot you would like to use. So you can do that if you want to get a little fancy. Or right now I noticed that Walmart had a sale on their canners that are this size right here. So it's quite a bit bigger. It's probably more that size. And it looks like, the blue enamelware, you know what I'm talking about? $25. and it has the basket and the lid and everything with it. So that's something to keep in mind. I highly recommend a water bath canner, and the reason why, just in case the electricity, the grid goes down or something like that, you will be able to water bath can all your stuff, the stuff that's in the freezer, the stuff that wherever, oh no, you know, everything's melting. Put that stuff on a campfire, or build a rocket stove. You can build a rocket stove out of like blocks, cinder blocks, bricks, or anything. But I suggest just if you wanted to look at something like that, or don't worry about it. Just you get your neighbor and say, I've got some meat in here. Talk to your church people. These are your people right here. Talk to your church people. I've got a problem. You know where you're going to meet up. You know what you're going to do. Say, I've got this problem right here, and I guarantee you that people will be here to help you. So you can also use electric pressure cooker brand as Instapot to water bath with. Just any kind of Instapot will water bath if you want to do it like that, if you don't want to do this. But keep in mind that your Instapot, this is the biggest it's going to do, okay? Even if they have an Instapot for canning, it's going to do 4 pints. But usually, that's great. If you got leftovers, you're by yourself, Instapot, wonderful. You can do it like that. So that's a good way to do it too. But I still most people are familiar with a water bath canning. It's simple. You just put it in there and just check your water. It's just simple. All right, stock pot. If you got a stock pot, you can use that too. And it tells about that, but we've already talked about that. Water bath canner, and I've talked about the enamelware. You can still get them Tractor Supply or Lehman's. Amish water bath canner, that's just basically a great big stainless steel container, looks like, that sits over 2 stove eyes, and that's a Amish water bath canner. And basically you can fit a big bunch in, and it's big and long, and it just goes, and those are expensive, but I'm just letting you know that those exist too. You can also look at Lehman's and you can find that. The electric water bath canner, and that's what they have. A lot of those, that Ball actually has a water bath canner. They're expensive. Electric jam and jelly maker, they make that, believe it or not. Ball makes electric jam and jelly maker, which automates stirring and has a timer for the perfect jam. Water bath with an Instapot, and we'd already talked about that, but basically you can use the steam function. Pressure canners, a lot of selections. We already talked about that. And about Aunt Jenny's pressure canner blew up, and she cleaned green beans off the ceiling for a year and thought a bomb went off and all that stuff. So like I said, don't get tore up. The newer ones generally are not going to do that. All right, heat source, a standard electric stove. It must have at least one large heating element to set on your canner on, water bath, or pressure. Mine, unfortunately, I wasn't thinking that I was ever going to can again. So I got an electric stove, and it has one large eye. Well, that hurts my feelings. If you ever go and make sure you have 2 large eyes anyway, because, it's just a bad deal. Glass top stove, we already talked about that. Or you can use a hot plate. Actually, if you have a glass top stove and you're still uncomfortable about setting that big, if you want a water bath, don't waste your money buying one like at Walmart. Most are 750 watts. That is not enough to boil your water with. That is only big enough to boil a saucepan on. It's just real small. You'll need at least 1,500 watts and one that's heavy duty. What has been recommended by many canners is the Broil King Catiaco PCR-15 Professional Cast Iron Range. It's $163 at this writing on Amazon. And what that is, it actually works just like a regular stove, and it would be great to have even though it's pricey. So that's an option rather than buying a new stove. Outside propane stove, a lot of people do that, and recommended is Camp Chef. It comes in 2 burners, available at Walmart, and if you wanted to use something like that, it's propane stove. And the turkey turkey stoves, I would be kind of concerned about that, even though it's propane, because it heats a really high heat. And if you do anything like that, you've got to use them with a heat diffuser. And a heat diffuser is basically, you can buy one of those fancy ones, or you can turn your cast iron electric skillet upside down and set your canner on top of that, and it will work as a heat diffuser.
Let's, at the church here, we're actually going to start having canning parties coming up. Sound all right to you? And with the church here, we do have a really professional gas stove in there that everybody will be able to use. And we're going to buy everything Kim suggested to buy for both water bath canning and pressure canning. We will have that at the church, and that'll be available anytime we want to have a canning party, or if there's 2 or 3 at the church that want to do some canning. We'll make the kitchen available for you to do that. How's that sound, everybody? Because we'll get on this, we'll do it. We're learning what we have to do. And by the way, the Camp Chef propane stove, we have one in the garage too. We do.
Look at you now.
Yep, and that's just an extra that we have. But because the gas stove here, and it's a real good one, has 2 big eyes on it like that, so we could do what Kim suggested to do. So shortly, we're going to have some canning parties. And Kim, we might have you come down to supervise our first couple. Would that be all right?
I'll try my best.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're going to take a break for just 5 minutes. Before we take the break, any other questions that we have? Okay, let's break for 5 minutes and come back and continue.
Sounds great. I don't know much about the back to basics, but I know, like, I have putting food by, that's another one. And then this one is stocking up. I love stocking up because it tells about everything that you may need. Dairy products and all that, you know. Freezer.
The all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving, 350 recipes, that one's $17.
Okay.
And then the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving, over 350 recipes, that's by Ball Home Canning Test Kitchen, is $17 on Amazon.
Okay.
And then the Ball Canning Back to Basics, okay, it says a foolproof guide to canning jams, jellies, pickles, and more. So maybe that's very limited. That's $14 on Amazon. So you were probably talking about the $17 one that's got everything.
I'm not for sure, just whichever one was at. I just looked at Walmart and just decided that one of those would be good. You know,
Okay.
just a ball canning book. I always
In the
just knew
store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. There you go. All right, what you'll need to get started, a recipe. We're on number 138. I'm skipping over the other because it's really not relevant. It's just some information. All right, what you'll need to get started is a recipe. I recommend a ball canning book. A canner, just decide whatever it is you're going to use. Jars, lids, rings, or just a case of jars that contains the jars and rings. Jar lifter, you know, the lift hot jars out of the canner. A debubbler, I like that debubbler that I just showed you right there. And it usually, if you wanted to get the kit, it all comes in a kit. I like the magnetic lid and ring lifter. It's not necessary but good to have, but it comes in one of those like this. See how easy that is? It's in hot water or whatever. And you just take it. You just take it and just put it on and do it like this. See, it didn't even go anywhere. But basically that way you can have it like this. Grab that. And usually I wouldn't be holding it, you know, it would be on my towel, remember? But you see how easy that was just to maneuver that. That's easy, and that doesn't get your fingers because there's nothing like doing this. All right. Jar funnel. These are not expensive. They're at Walmart. And see, it's bigger where that you can actually, it sits right in there. And whether it's a wide, this is a regular mouth, but it also sits on top of a wide mouth. And it just gives you plenty of room to hit the jar. Don't think that it will protect this from junk, whatever it is that you've got on there. You will still have to wipe it because you're doing this and it gets nasty. You know, whatever product you're canning, whether it's jams or preserves, it will get sticky or whatever. So that's just kind of how it is. All right, wooden spoon. I love my wooden spoons. They're very inexpensive. Ladle. I like the ladle or a large coffee cup, sturdy measuring cup, something with a handle, but a ladle works good. A sieve or a strainer or a colander, some kind of something, because you're going to need that, like to wash your vegetables or whatever, anything in. A timer, and there's a timer on your phone, you know. Large pans or bowls, we talked about that. A saucepan for simmering lids, or a tea kettle to add hot water to your water bath. Measuring cups, measuring spoons, pot holders. It's always good to have good pot holders. Vinegar to wipe the rims with, cleans off the grease, but you can use a wet corner of a towel. What can you can? Standard protocol for USDA rules state high acid foods, fruits, tomatoes, fruit, or vegetables that contain salt and vinegar brine can be water bath. Also, highly sweetened preserves, jams, and jellies can be water bath. Lemon can be added to tomatoes to raise acid content. And beware of the new the tomatoes that we have, the varieties, because a lot of them may not be high acid content like our old tomatoes, by the way. You can add citric acid to them. Takes the place, and this is just, you can get it at Walmart, but it takes the place of any kind of lemon. If you don't want to taste lemon, it's just citric acid, and it does the same thing, raises the acid content. Citric acid will also, like if you have something, for instance, like something that you don't want to get, somebody said something about peaches and their peaches turn brown. A little bit of citric acid will keep those peaches from turning brown, and it will keep them, does the same thing like lemon juice does. It will keep them from turning. All right. Meat, you can water bath meat. You can pressure can meat. Modern USDA rules says you can't water bath meats, and so will many naysayers, but people in the UK do it all the time. And it just tells there, I believe it's due to lack of funding and the lack of interest in pressure canning. I'm sure that if they've got a minute or two and some funding, they will be glad to get back into that for us, to tell us what we can or what we can't and what's dangerous. But like I said, my kitchen, my rules, your kitchen, your rules. If you don't feel comfortable canning some of the things that I have said, it's not a big deal. You do what you feel comfortable with. It's your kitchen and your family that you're seeing too, and I'd rather you feel good about it. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what I do. So, all right. Let's begin. Say, for instance, you're going to read your recipe, get in mind what you need to do to get together. Sometimes you want to prepare the food in one day, can the next. That's what I do a lot. I may put my food all in the jar, set the jar in the refrigerator, you know, and it may be cold when I bring it out and go to can it. But remember, cold product, cold canner, cold water. It's not a big deal. Just go ahead and raise your heat temperature up, not really quick, and you'll be fine. I've not so far had a jar to break on account of it. But I like to, sometimes if I'm tired or whatever and just want to just do a little at a time, that's the way I do it. Put it in the jars, make my recipe, put it in the jars, then can it the next day. So that way, if you do it in increments, it won't tire you out either as much. Put the recipe in front of you so you can see it. Have a get together. Get it together. Cleaner, sterilized jars, lids, ring, funnel, and all that. So basically you get everything together, timer, just dish pans, and you fill the hot product if it's hot. Jams, jellies, place them in jars and heat. Pour the hot product in there. I've already talked about it. Hot, 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 cold, cold, cold. Don't hot jar and cold canner. Don't cold product and hot canner. All right. Wipe the rim. Always remember to wipe the rim, because if you don't, you will not get a good seal. Once you do that, you put the jars into the canner, either with your hands or with the tongs. Run the water into a pan. The way I do it is I run the water into a pan and then pour the pan into the canner. And the reason why is because I can't put this in under my sink, and my sink's not big enough, so I just pour them like in a dish pan, then get that water and just do it like this, and it works pretty good. You do it however if you got a better idea, but that's my idea. All right, turn it up. If it's water bath, you turn your heat up on high. Wait for the boil. When the water reaches the boil, put the lid and leave it on. You always check the water. Like I said, just mark the spoon an inch, and that way you can make sure by just saying, you look in there in your canner, the water bath canner, and you stick it on top of that, and you say inch. Good shape. If it's about an inch, I'd rather have it 2 inches, by the way, where it go ahead and that I don't have to worry about it boiling down. Maintaining the water level and water bath. Make sure you maintain it all the time. Check it every 15, 20, or 30 minutes or so. And it talks about stopping if you've stopped the boil by accident, how to fix it. And we already talked about that. Time's up. Turn off the heat. Let the canner sit for about 30 minutes with the lid on. This is a water bath. It should stop boiling. Open the lid away from you and let the water drain off the lid back into the canner. Lay the lid face up and keep the water from getting everywhere, because it will. It will pool in that water bath canner lid like you wouldn't believe. So then just go ahead and just let it sit for about 5 minutes. It's always good to let sit. I don't know if it says that or not, but yeah. And you can let it set, use your guidelines, but at least 5 minutes. I like about 30 minutes. Just use your guidelines, but it's not rocket science. Just let it set until it stops boiling, cools down a little bit. That's what I like. Then lift them out. That's just common sense to me. All right, now, if you're going to be pressure canning, we're on 172. Read your recipe to get in mind what you're going to do and get together. Sometimes you'll prepare your food one day and can the next. Don't stress about it is the main thing. Get together, you clean jars and everything, basically your rack, jiggler, gasket. Place your clean jars on clean towel, canter the stove rack on the bottom, timers, dish pan. Fill the jar with hot product. If you're going to do that, place the jars in the oven, to keep them warm. And then debubble, fill it up and wipe the rim. Make sure you always wipe the rim. I'm being repetitive here, but this way you learn, okay? So bear with me. All right, jars to the canner. Pour the water in. Don't forget the water. You will be sorry if you do. You'll be like me. You'll be looking for a rubber mallet. I'm telling you. And you'll be doing some crying. All right, turn your heat on medium-high, not high. Vent, steam for 10 minutes. If it doesn't vent with moisture, you forgot to add your water. I call it spitting because it will spit out some water first prior to venting. This is an important step. Jiggler. After the 10 minutes venting, put on the jiggler. Begin the timer once that it starts to jiggle. And I think it says once you put on the jiggler, it's time to start the timer, but that's not true. Remember, that's a misstep right there. So just remember that that's a misstep. Wait till it starts to jiggle like what it's supposed to, then start your timer, okay? Bring the canner to pressure. And you know, we talked about the jiggler doing the hula or jiggling, and you can hear it. Always being here in range of the canner. If the time's up, you turn off the heat. Gradual temperature change is your friend. Let it go back down to 0 if it's a gauge. Lay the lid face down, getting the water everywhere. Remove the lid by opening it away from you. And we talked about how to do that. Place the jars on a towel. We talked about how to do that too. And that's 190. It just tells you how to do it. Also, canned meats and some other things may leak grease into the canner. Just make sure you clean out the canner with some good soapy water. Wash and label. Let the jars set overnight. Remove the rings. Wash the rings and jars in hot soapy water and dry. And basically, I just do that. I let them set all night in the canner or whatever. And then I get them out and then just run me some good hot soapy water. And then after I wash them good, take the rings off. They'll be cool. Take those rings off and let them soak for a minute and in some hot water and just wash them good, because you want, if you give away the jars, you want them to be pretty. You don't want them to put them up and they've got grease and stuff on them, you know. And then you label them with a Sharpie. All right. Small batch canning, and this is maybe a lot of us, because even though we want to do big batch, this may be something that's done here. Big batch canning may be something that's done at the church. But if you want to do small batch and you've got $1 or $2 saved up that you can invest, and yes, it is an investment these days. Food is a valuable commodity. I highly recommend you buy an electric pressure canner if you wanted to do that, especially if you work. If you work, get you an electric pressure canner. If you've got the money, get you an electric pressure canner. If you don't have the money, a small water bath. Like I said, either one, but that is small batch canning. Either one would be good for that. The electric pressure canner is just basically a simple way of doing it. If you got the money, I recommend you get one. If you don't have the money, don't sweat it. Water bath can. Or buy a small canner like this. Either one. Just small batch. But this is, like I said, it's a 12-quart canner. Presto makes a 16-quart. And modern recommendation states anything below that is unsafe. So according to USDA recommendations, this is an unsafe pressure canner. Because it's 12 quarts. But I use it all the time. All right, so it's like I said, it's just what you feel is good for you, your kitchen, your rules. But the 16 quart holds seven quarts, so just because it says 16 quart doesn't mean that it's going to hold 16 quarts. It's only going to hold 7 quarts. I don't know why they call it a 16 quart pressure canner, because it only holds 7 quarts, okay? And it runs about $85 to $100. And if you get an older, smaller canner, be careful of canning fish, as the smaller canners have a shorter heat up and cool down. Otherwise, you should be fine. Fish is the only thing that's different about any kind of meat. It's a longer time of canning fish, okay? The third is the water bath can. Just make sure you extend the time to compensate for the hours different. Pressure canning and meats are 3 hours. When your water bath, fish is more time. Now here's some Rebel canning recipes and that's from 196 on down to down to 212. And basically, all those recipes, I just copied and dropped them into the recipes that I gave you. So you're going to see those in that recipe book, okay? All right, dehydrating. This is an easy way. If you don't want to do anything else, this is the easiest thing you can do is dehydrating. You don't have to have this fancy dehydrator. See, I like my dehydrator because that I can just go ahead, whatever that it is, I can just put it in here, put in the food, put on the lid, and it tells me like nuts, seeds, herbs and spices, fruits and vegetables, jerky, meats and fish. And it's a dial. 135 is for fruits and vegetables. So if you wanted to go, for instance, and you wanted to really start doing food prepping, you don't have anything, best thing to do is just go right, like if you wanted to, you can use one of these if you wanted to, but basically dehydrate. You don't have to have a dehydrator. You can, with your oven, you can take cookie sheets and you can get a big old thing of mixed vegetables. And like this right here is what I'm saying. They've got them at Walmart for like $7 or something. Get you a one or two or whatever kind you like. But that's what this is. This is a bag of it. It's got green beans, corn, and peas, and some carrots. You know, those little square carrots that you can't get except from these frozen things. But that's what that is. And you can basically dehydrate you a big bunch of stuff just like that real easy. If you got a garden, and all you do is you just put it on 200 is low, basically, like it says right here, for 135 fruits and vegetables, just prop your door open of your oven, and it will get to about 135. That's plenty enough reduction. Put it on the lowest heat. 135 is fruits and vegetables. But if your oven goes 200, mine goes 200. That's the lowest I've got. So what I do is prop that oven open, lay those frozen vegetables, just clip it open, put it on cookie sheets, put it in there, and dehydrate it about 10 hours or something like that. Basically, how you can tell if something is dehydrated, you hear it rattle? That's how you can tell. That's the best way of knowing that your stuff is dehydrated right. Bananas will maybe a little bit bendy, but they won't be sticky. If they're sticky, they're not ready. They need to be done more. But bananas need to not be sticky. That's how you tell they're done. But I like to put them in jars. Although you got an apple, say you've got an apple, you don't know what to do with it or whatever, and it's about, it's going to ruin. Just cut it up into pieces, core it, cut it up into pieces, and you can do the same thing with the apple. That's all that is. It's a Granny Smith apple. Now look how small that is. You can, that food sealer, vacuum sealer, this is all this is. I put the apples in a vacuum sealer, and see what it did is took out all the oxygen. Those were actually done last year. And they still look fine, and they feel fine. I can feel them. And these are peppers. I really enjoy my peppers that are dehydrated like that. Jalapenos. So, or green peppers, but most of them are jalapenos. It just depended on what I had, but most of them are jalapenos. So I just cut them up and dehydrate. And basically when I get ready to do a soup or whatever and I want a little heat or a little kick to it, I just put a few of those in there, and it works good. You can vacuum seal the cans also if you wanted to do that. And I have done that, but most of them I just don't. I just do it just like that. Now, this is turnip greens. Like right now, I got turnip greens in my garden. I am here tonight. I'm not going to be eating turnip greens because I already had dinner. I didn't want my turnip greens to ruin. So what I did this morning is when I went out in my little garden, because I got a baby garden, and picked my little turnip greens and stuff like that, and I just put them on a dehydrator. And it just dehydrated everything, put it on 10 hours, and it's good to go. Now this type of dehydrator, if you want to get, I like a Nesco. This one's square, but they make round ones. You can get one on Amazon for like $45 or something. It looks like a Hamilton Beach. Hamilton Beach is like a rectangle one, and it's also good. And it has it's digital. You can get one of those, and it's like $45 I saw the other day, but it's not called a Hamilton Beach, but it looks like a Hamilton Beach. Had good reviews. But like I said, I like the Nesco. The Nesco is reliable. It's not fancy, nothing fancy about it. I still like that little writing on there that tells me what it is. These are just where that if you get a dehydrator, you see how big that is? Corn falls down through it. Makes me unhappy. So they usually come with one of these. But I went ahead and ordered some cheap ones from Amazon. I don't know what they're made of, but they work pretty good. They're limber, but they do what they're supposed to do, which is keep everything from falling down. It's plastic. I don't know what kind of, but it's got a strange feel to it. But it works. So anyway, how it works, basically how this one works is that you see there's the fan. And the deal is how it dehydrates is that it's heat and air. And that's really what you want. If you don't have some air in your oven or whatever, just fluff it every once in a while. I forgot to tell you that. Turn it over or whatever. Just keep it going. Don't let it sit in one place. And if you're going to do it electrically, it just comes apart like in trays. So you have tray, 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 tray. So it just stacks. It blows this temperature of air, whatever that says up here that you can keep, and there's where it blows from. This one doesn't have the timer, but hey, I can look. I started at 8 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? At 8 o'clock that night, then it's been 12 hours. It doesn't hurt to run it a little bit longer. It's, people say, oh, you need to do that, and it needs to be precise. I'm not real precise sometimes. Just depends on what I'm doing. Yes? No. Leave them in because it's set up to, like the one that's Hamilton Beach, it actually is set up, and it's made different than this is. The air comes from the bottom, and it has a cap over here, and how it works and gets that temperature is with all the trays in. Also, another thing is, too, you can get more trays for these things, but I wouldn't advise a whole lot because it will just take longer to do the product. It will take longer. So, like I said, I'd rather just go ahead and just keep it as is. You can try it with it out, your kitchen, your rules. Just try it and see how it does, see if you like it. But if you don't, then just, I'll just keep it all in. This one actually came from Essex Bargain Hunt years ago. And I bought another one at Essex Bargain Hunt, and it's a round one. So they came cheap at the time, but now they're like, I saw like a Nesco, and it was a pretty good one for maybe $60 at Amazon the other day. But I like the Nesco brand because they've just been making these dehydrators for years, and they've got it perfected as far as I'm concerned. You can get those really expensive ones. They have the trays that put in, and people swear by them. Excalibur. Oh, it only takes so much to do this, whatever it is. But really, because it's just a dehydrator, the trays just slide in instead of stacking. And it takes a little bit longer. And for the money, I guarantee you I can do as much with this one as they can do with theirs. And I'm not dissing, but I'm just saying I've not had the urge to go buy Excalibur or some other brand and pay $300 for one. It's just me. So, the oven, we've talked about that. Dehydrating outside, if you wanted to, you could just take a plain window screen, lay the food items on top of the screen, cover it with a cloth and another screen, and basically you can dehydrate like that. Just make sure you bring it in at night because you don't want it to get moisture. You can basically dehydrate anything too. I mean, most things you can dehydrate. And like I said, you can dehydrate meat, you can dehydrate vegetables, you can dehydrate fruits, you know. You can make, I've actually meant to have a recipe on here, and I forgot it to put it on here, but it's like how to dehydrate eggs, so that's another thing. Eggs, dehydrate. And basically look on Red Rose Homestead. I highly recommend watch her. She's on YouTube, and you can see how she dehydrates eggs. So it's very interesting. She talks about freeze drying and dehydrating. All right. Yes.
If you don't want to stink up the house with onions, use the frozen ones.
No kidding.
The raw onions, if you do that, you're going to smell it and it's going to make you cry. So instead of using those, get the frozen onions in the same frozen vegetable section. And you could even get that mirepoix, the two different colored peppers and the onions, and do that all together. But if you do the onions when they're frozen, it won't stink up the house.
Did not know that.
I just saw it on YouTube.
All right. You can basically you saw, these are just in a Ziploc bag, by the way. And to rehydrate, if you wanted to rehydrate, this is just oregano. I have lemon balm and things like that. So the lemon balm is actually really good for tea, by the way. So if you have some of that, but the turnip greens, basically you put them in some warm water and let them rehydrate. It may take 15, 20 minutes or something like that, maybe 30. But you'll see them, they'll start to rehydrate, and then just put them in a skillet and just cook them. They're not going to be like your regular ones. You may not like the taste, you may not like the texture, but hey, they're dehydrated, they go good in soups too. Just anything that you dehydrate, remember that if you want to make a big pot of soup and want to have something just a little bit special that's different, use some of your dehydrated greens in them. It's really good. All right. Basically, it's talking about here, I'm on 223, 224, mold. Check for when you're doing these things. Like I said, if it's going to mold, it's going to have moisture in it, and you just didn't dry it good enough. So this right here doesn't have any mold in it, but I would be concerned if I tried to shake it and it wouldn't shake and it'd kind of be sticky. These are banana chips. But I can hear them. Remember, we can hear them shaking the jar, so they're good. But basically, look for moisture and mold. That's the biggest thing about your dehydrated foods. And you can smell it. You know what mold smells like? Take it off, sniff, and you go, oh, no, it's got mold. I probably wouldn't eat it if it had mold in it. Yes?
Yeah, when you buy fresh strawberries, if you put them in a jar and, screw the lid on good, put them in the refrigerator, but they'll keep for at least 2 weeks.
Wow. And another use for jars, what can I say? Jars are my friend.
If you'll rinse them in vinegar, your fruits and stuff, even strawberries, and then rinse them off and then put them in the refrigerator, then they gets rid of anything and it don't.
Bugs too, I bet. All right, the dehydrated eggs, I do have a recipe here. It's number 228. Basically, that's Red Rose Homestead recipe for the dehydrated raw eggs. So I didn't know I had it in there. It's not in the recipes. It's in this right here, and it's number 228 if you want to read about it a little bit later. All right. Freeze dryers. I don't have a freeze dryer. It's expensive, but they're really, really good. But like I said, I don't have one. So I can't tell you about it, either good or bad, except that I've heard they're good. Also, vacuum sealer. Like I said, now, one of the things is that if you want to, and I rebag, if you want to store flour, the way everything is right now, it's a good idea to store. Sugar, 5-gallon bucket, just keep buying it by the little pack. I want to say 5-pound. I knew that wasn't right. Thank you. But buy it by a 4-pound bag, get a 5-pound food grade bucket. I think you can get those at Lowe's now, food grade buckets. But get a food grade bucket. I got a Gamma lid, and what that is one that goes straight onto that 5-gallon bucket. You take that good rubber mallet we talked about just a minute ago, and you beat that Gamma lid on, and what the Gamma lid does is it gives it a ring right here where that lid will screw on and screw off of that 5-gallon bucket. It is a marvelous invention. And the neat thing is about like storing your sugar in a 5-gallon bucket, if you're going to do anything at all, like do any type of baking, if you're going to do any type of preserves, you're going to need sugar. It's probably not going, people think you're hoarding sugar, but no, that's just what you're going to use to cook with. So I highly recommend a 5-gallon bucket and put sugar in. That's what I use.
Let me put this in there. The 5-gallon buckets that we did for your 5-gallon bucket gardens, those are food grade. We can get more of those at the Mennonites. And if you want to convert one of your 5-gallon buckets to store one of these, you know all the buckets that we bought for everybody? I have all your lids upstairs, and they're that kind of lid. I have all the lids upstairs. Yeah. So I have a stack of lids about this high. So anybody who wants some lids, I mean, you won't need it for your garden buckets, but if you want to, hey, it came with the package. I'm not going to say no, right? I got them upstairs. So don't flip your lid over it. In any case. So. Hey, Kim, you mentioned the Nesco dehydrator. That's the one we bought. And I got to tell you, I made the best beef jerky that we ever had. It was a very simple recipe. It took 6 hours. And the main ingredients are garlic powder, black pepper, red pepper, soy sauce, and honey. And it was supposed to last a month, but I liked it too much.
I bet. Also, these electric canners, and I'm going to run through those again if you wanted an electric canner. I found Presto electric canners. They don't have them on Amazon anymore, and they're very pricey, $329. That was just way out of my budget. But I've looked on the Presto site, and that's what they were. And that's the electric, I'm talking about the electric canners. And so it's 5 pints or 4 quarts max capacity. The Nesco is in the middle of the Instapot and the Presto. The Nesco is middle of the road. It is not available on Amazon at this time, and I couldn't find any of them, but it is $179 on the Nesco site. It also holds 5 pints or 4 quarts. The Instapot, if you're just thinking about your canning like the regular pint jars, which most people, that's fine. Most people, what you're going to do anyway is just you've cooked a lot of soup, and you're so sick and tired of eating that soup, you have had it all week and it's going into the next week and you can't deal with another bite. That's what you can. So you basically put leftovers, like leftover beans, leftover whatever, anything will go in a can, and then you just put the lid on, just like what I've talked to you about, same way as you're going to pressure can, because it is pressure canning. Put it in that Instapot. It holds 4 pints. So basically, and it's $149, and you can find it on Amazon. But just know it's the Instapot Max. And check if you're interested in that canner. Enlarge the picture and look at that canner and make sure it has the canning button on it. Otherwise, it's not a canner. You'll find other Instapots like the Instapot Duo and all this, but they do not can. They only pressure cook. So basically, I finished up. Cheese, I meant to say about the cheese too. I heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw some people like take cheddar cheese, and there is red wax that you can buy on Amazon that's good to preserve cheese. You dip that cheese, you heat up the red wax, and you dip that cheese in it maybe 4 or 5 times to make sure you coat it good, like this end, and then let it dry, this end again. And basically what you're doing is you're sealing that cheese. I know a long time ago, I used to buy cheese, and it was hoop cheese, and it was done just like that. And it was not refrigerated or anything. It was just in a place, and you bought hoop cheese. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, too, if you want to think about preserving cheese. There you go. All right, that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that? Oh, thank you. Oh, I've so enjoyed it, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed it, I think, as much as y'all have or more.
Wonderful.
Yes.
What was the thing to buy for the lids on our food 5-gallon buckets that you have to?
I'll show you what I have upstairs. Tell me if those are the right ones.
Okay,
But they're called
Gamma lid
it is.
to put on it so it screws open?
It's like, what it's really for is any type of 5-gallon bucket, and you want to convert it in, it'd be like your regular canister. Everybody's got canisters on their counters, you know what I'm saying? But the canister is never big enough. You keep like filling it up maybe every day, or then it's not ever enough. Mine was not ever enough, so that's the reason why I put a lot of sugar in there. But you can put flour. I meant to tell you all, and this is another thing, like if you want to use one of those lids, and one of those food grade buckets, this is a Mylar bag. And if you ever decide, and it talks about it in the cookbook, but it talks about in the very last of it, it talks about Mylar bags. But this is a Mylar bag, and it shows how to do it. But if that you're interested in filling some 5-gallon buckets to use, what I do is long-term food storage. What I do, and I know people don't do it exactly the same, but what I like to do is like long-term food storage. I may have a thing of flour, not of sugar, but a thing of flour, a thing of beans, a thing of whatever, just, some noodles, some this, some that. And then while you're filling that, then you've got something that you can pull out that you can eat instead of like a 5-gallon bag of pinto beans. Which I love pinto beans, I'm telling you, but like put you some some pancake mix in there. And you know, if you got your thing of sugar, you don't want to ever like seal your sugar tight because it will be a brick. So what you do is you keep it in a 5-gallon bucket and let it breathe. But if you wanted to, like say for instance, winter wheat or corn or beans or whatever, and if you wanted to do a 5-gallon bucket of it, then you can use this. See, it's got a Ziploc here. Put whatever that it is, even if you wanted to do like what I do. Like I said, I just put a lot of various things in my bucket, and then I seal the bucket up. But this is good, like if you want to, that you put some oxygen absorbers in there, and you may want to talk about what oxygen absorbers are later on or experiment with them. And this is like different kind of preserving. This is like, and not just preserving the bounty, but this is more geared towards maybe prepping. So basically you're looking at later on down the road when there is no food and you don't want to eat just this, because you know you're going to want maybe a biscuit or a piece of cornbread. So basically take, you know, if you're going to do that, you can break your flour or your meal or whatever it is down in one of these sacks. So you put it all in there, fold it over. Then you put it in one of the plastic bags and sealer. You know what did I say that thing was, the sealer? Vacuum sealer. But what kind of was it? Yeah, food saver. If you've got a food saver, just vacuum seal your flour. Never put your flour directly in where that, when you vacuum seal it, that flour goes up into your food sealer. It will ruin your food sealer. You will not know what happened to it, but it will ruin it. It will not work anymore. Don't do that with liquids either if you're going to use the food sealer. What you're going to do is go ahead and like freeze the liquid, whatever that it is. Freeze your chicken, freeze your steak. If you're going to put steak or meat, roast or whatever, you're going to put it in the freezer first, get it all like a hard brick, and then you're going to use the food saver. You're going to put it in there. But mainly, any kind of powder, you make sure that it's sealed up some way. If it's a plastic bag and you want to go ahead and just seal it in that plastic bag, fine. Make sure you poke a few holes in it and then put it in that the food sealer. Seal that thing up. But then you can go ahead and just take whatever you got, like say for instance your small pack of flour, your small pack of meal, and you've got maybe a month or a month of stuff right there in addition to this right here. So then you got some flour. Anything that you put in these extends the shelf life. If you do it basically with the oxygen absorber, it extends the shelf life even to flour to maybe 5 years. The flour would go 5 years, maybe even longer. But like pancake mix would be great. You take that sugar, cook it on the stove with a little water, you got a syrup, to put over your pancakes. That's what Karo syrup is. Just basically it's not the same, but it works. And if you get the Mylar bags, you've got the flat irons. Do you know what I'm talking about? The girls got flat irons. You take your flat iron and then a lot of them maybe don't have this right here, but even if it does, it doesn't matter. This just makes it pretty, but it's not necessary. You take that flat iron, just run it across through there, and it seals this bag. And with the oxygen, it sucks all the oxygen out, and the oxygen is what kills everything. And it'll kill like the bugs, any kind of bugs that are in your flour, that are in your meal, or anything like that. Bugs cannot live without oxygen. They're just like us.
That's good stuff.
All right, I'm done.
Any other questions before we close? I want to pray before we close. Father, we thank you. I mean, we are so thankful. Thank you for sending Kim. Thank you for giving her such wisdom and knowledge and understanding about these things. Thank you that we're able to have her here last week and this week. And Kim, yeah, you're family, so you're part of us now. So Lord, bless Kim. Bless her in all her work. Thank you for bringing back to our remembrance everything that we need when we start to can and dehydrate and do everything we've been taught. Because you know how we are at this church. If we can't apply it, we can't use it, but we're applying what we're learning. And we're thankful. And Father, it's you that we thank. In Jesus' name, we pray. And everybody said,